Is Utah ready to get back on top? JT Wistrcill of Locked On Utes is here to discuss that fact. Yeah, he's shaking his head. Yeah,
I am shaking my head.
JT's all about it. Yeah, Utah's back to the conference championship picture. You know, something they haven't had in 3 years now, JT, by the time 2025 rolls around, is stability and certainty at quarterback. I am knocking on wood. Hear me? Right here. Utah fans, when that voodoo water makes its way to Devon Dampier somehow, don't come blaming me. Just don't do it. I don't want to hear it. But that's got to be the biggest reason for optimism for the Utes is you know who the quarterback's going to be, what he's able to give you, at least relative to what you've had the last couple of years.
If nothing else, Devon Dampier will make the quarterback position fun in Salt Lake City again. And that is something that we have desperately missed over the last couple of years. He's a special talent. He's the only player in the country last year who ran for over 1,000 and threw for over 2,500 yards. That's what's making the jump from group of 5 to P4. And it feels like he is ready. I think a lot of people expect him to be really good. And if you look at how he did against those P4 teams last year, it was impressive. They struggled to bring him down too. He got sacked less than 5 times last year. He's an incredibly elusive player, and he's already turning heads in spring ball. He's made a number of plays already in the media viewing portions that we've heard reported on so far. He's been able to make plays downfield, bought time for his teammates too, and he led the country in yards per carry last year, like over all running backs. That's just how elusive he was at that level. So this is a guy who's absolutely ready to make the leap up too. And you've heard the different energy that there's been around practice, and part of that is having a guy at quarterback with the dynamic abilities that Devon Dampier has, a guy that has already been a leader, gaining the confidence of his teammates too, knows this system well because Jason Beck, his offensive coordinator, came from New Mexico and is now Utah's offensive coordinator too. So it's incredibly exciting what Utah's putting together, and Devon Dampier will be the biggest difference between this Utah team and last year. They lost so many games due to bad quarterback play. Dampier, and there's a chance he threw 12 interceptions last year. He might turn over a little bit, but he's going to be able to make some plays and do some big things. And I'm expecting the Utah to bounce back in a big way because they have Devon Dampier under center.
I think that's the only question that you have, which I think is a welcome one for Utah fans, which is, hey, does this guy replicate his style? You know, Cam Ward had, I think, similar questions when he transferred to Washington State originally from Incarnate Word. You know, I remember talking about that at the time and wondering, hey, is he going to be able to make the adjustment that he's no longer able to fit it into that tight window? He's not able to outrun every defensive. Like you're making a leap forward here. Certainly from the Mountain West to the Big 12, there is a gap. There is a gap. No matter what random YouTube comments will tell me out there, there is a gap. And so I think that's kind of the biggest question for this Utah offense from my vantage point is how does he make that jump? But here's why Utah should be optimistic on that front. I think this is an interesting match. It gives me a few kind of Jalen Milroe with Kalen DeBoer vibes where, hey, this is a different style of quarterback to what the head coach is used to working with. Cam Rising sat in the pocket. Tyler Huntley sat in the pocket, made plays. They could move, but they weren't runners. Dampier's a runner. And the great quarterbacks for Kalen DeBoer leading up to his time at Alabama were Jake Haener, Michael Penix. They sat in the pocket, they sliced and diced. And at first, it worked. And then it wasn't working as well by the end of the season. And Alabama, I think, feels that they could actually be in a better position at quarterback this year with Ty Simpson likely to win that starting job. How do you see that dynamic playing out for Utah?
Well, first of all, I need to correct. I was smiling and nodding when you said Kalen DeBoer and Jalen Milroe together. The reason I was smiling and nodding, because I know it was a disappointment to your Alabama fans who listen to this, but being a team that just misses out on the college football playoff, if Utah could achieve that next year, that would be fantastic, awesome, amazing. To be a top 15 team in the country. I would love that. And if they're a top 15 in the country, they might have gone on to maybe just losing the Big 12 championship, still have a chance to get in, although highly unlikely based on how everything plays out. Anyways, back to your question. Yeah, the biggest thing is going to be is Kyle Whittingham, like willing to finally change his style and let Devon Dampier be Devon Dampier, because Utah's had quarterbacks in the past where Dampier he's better with his legs than he is his arm. He can make some really impressive throws, but he's better with his legs than he is his arm. So do you let him make those mistakes? Because in the end of the day, he might make some mistakes and put you in some bad spots, but a lot of times he's going to get you out of them because he is that tremendously talented. I do believe Kyle Whittingham is going to finally give a little bit this year in terms of how rigid he's been in the past of ground and pound, running the ball only. Like if we have a quarterback we don't feel confident in throwing the ball and we're worried he's going to turn it over, Kyle Whittingham has just a reaction, like a very negative and vitriol reaction every time his team turns the ball over. There are very few things he hates more than turning the ball over. But in order to lure Devon Dampier to Utah, in order to get Jason Beck to come to Utah, I do believe that there were things made in discussions that were held and had about, hey, you'll be able to do your offense and run these things too. So I do believe they will let Devon Dampier be Devon Dampier. The mix you talked about with Kalen DeBoer and the things of that nature too, they have a history of that, yes. But because of the familiarity that Jason Beck and Devon Dampier have with each other, that's why I think this will be a more positive marriage than it ended up playing out for the Crimson Tide last year. I really think that Devon Dampier is going to have a really good year for this Utah team. And you mentioned Utah contending in the Big 12. I do believe this will be a top 5 team in the conference next year.
Top 5 in the conference.
You put contend in the title. You were implying.
I did. I just you put it at top 5, and I just want, because frankly, if you're top 8 in the Big 12, you're pushing for a Big 12 championship spot, because that's the way that this beautiful conference works. That's the way that it went last year. I have no reason to expect it's going to be any different. You could tell me that, Arizona somehow bounces back. I'd say, I just watched Arizona State do it. You could tell me that, I don't know if I'd buy Colorado getting there necessarily. Like, there are a couple teams, and Arizona might not have been the perfect example, but you can tell me Baylor takes a step forward and gets there. Texas Tech could make a run. Utah could bounce back. Maybe. And one thing I also want to ask you, JT, because I haven't had the chance to ask you this question just yet. It has to be more than Devon Dampier, right?
Yes.
He has to change the quarterback position, but you have to have other guys. I want you to go to the transfer portal, which is opening next week, and oh boy, there could be some real chaos in the transfer portal. I mean, there's always chaos in there, but if you go to who Utah's brought in via the portal so far, who's one guy you highlight and say he has to be great for Utah to be an upper tier team in the Big 12?
I'll go Wayshawn Parker, their running back. They brought him from Washington State. Consensus was he was pretty much a top 3 running back transfer portal addition for this team at the running back spot. So that was a big get for them. Over 700 yards last year with the Cougars. Utah brought over his running back coach as well. So kind of the similar thing they were able to do with Dampier there. But it really feels like if he has a dominant season, and I think this Utah offensive line is spectacular. The way Spencer, I'm not sure if you've heard the way that some people in the media are talking about Spencer Fano, Utah's right tackle, coming back for another year, but there is some genuine first-round hype about him in the 2026 NFL draft. So you have a guy like that on the right side. Caleb Lomo did a really good job. You return all 5 starters back. This is getting really deep into Utah talk, but I do think the interior offensive line needs to improve in order for them to meet that mark. But Wayshawn Parker was a special player, and he was a true freshman last year. The biggest jump we often see players make are their freshman to sophomore years. And we just mentioned Spencer Fano. Spencer Fano started his freshman season at left tackle, and it did not go great. He was fine, but it's really hard to play as a true freshman in offensive line. So in and of itself, that was an accomplishment. Moves to the right side, one of the best right tackles in all of college football. So I really feel like Wayshawn Parker can be a guy too. This is a Utah team that has upgraded their receiver room, their tight ends room. Seems like they got some really good players in there, can maximize. Won't say upgrade because you lose Keithy, but a lot of really encouraging things. This Utah offense took a complete overhaul in personnel, and I think they're going to be better for it, and they're going to maximize some of the pieces they had. And even though they lost some veterans, still a Utah defense. So I'm really bullish on this Utah team in 2025.